Mr. Chairman, this is Teresa. Staff is ready to begin the meeting when you are.
Okay. Let me call this meeting to order of the Planning Commission of the town of Hilton Head Island. I think the first order of business, as always, is the pledge allegiance to the flag, which I will lead you in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the
the republic
for which it stands, one
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Okay. May I ask Teresa, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, great. Let's start with the roll call, if you would, Teresa.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Siebold,
Here.
Mr. Alfred,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Campbell,
Here.
Mr. Hens,
Here.
Mr. Collett,
Here.
Mr. D'Arienzo,
Here.
Mr. Scanlon,
Here.
and
Okay,
Mr. Perry is excused for today's meeting.
that's correct. Okay, thank you, Teresa. The first item here we want to cover at this point is the approval of the agenda, which you received in your information packet. Does the staff have any changes to the agenda for today?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Alfred
Second.
moves, and who is second on that?
Collett.
Mr. Collett. Okay, thank you. Let's see, is there a second we have? And all those in favor, raise your right hand in favor of the agenda for today's meeting. Great. We have a unanimous 8-0 vote. Now is the approval of minutes. So the meeting of September 15th, those two are in your packet. May I have a motion to approve the September 15 minutes. And is there a second? Mr. O'Neill moves.
Second.
Mr. Campbell seconds. Thank you. Are any opposed? Let's take a vote on that. Raise your hand if you're in approve of the minutes. Everybody up? Okay, 8-0. Thank you very kindly. Appearance by citizens at this point, Teresa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public comments concerning agenda items were submitted electronically via the Open Town Hall portal. The comments were provided to the Commission for review and made part of the official record. In addition to submitting comments on the portal, citizens were provided the opportunity to call into the meeting to comment on agenda items and non-related agenda items. There is one citizen signed up to speak during the item for the Greater Island Council Beaufort County Landfill Resolution. And Mr. Chairman, we will call on that citizen during that time.
Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it. Item number 8, there is no unfinished business on the agenda for today. So we'll move immediately into a new business where we'll have a presentation by Mr. Tony Wartko regarding the Greater Island Council Beaufort County Landfill Resolution. We're going to consider and review this before advancing the resolution to Town Council if it's approved. Mr. Wartko, you may unmute, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission for giving me the opportunity to come before you today. My name is Tony Wartko. I'm a citizen live on Hilton Head for over 30 years. I'm here today as a member of the GIC Sustainability Advisory Committee to present a resolution regarding solid waste management and recycling for Hilton Head Island and Beaufort County, and to ask you to advance this resolution to Town Council with the recommendation for approval. First, a little background. The SAC was created in 2012 following the Mayor's Task Force for the Future Vision 2025 report. This report ID'd 11 key initiatives for the future. One of those initiatives was to create a Sustainability Advisory Committee to ID and promote sustainability options, policies, and practices. One of the first tasks the SAC did was to prepare a baseline sustainability assessment evaluating key sustainability practices with broad community support and funding. This BSA report was finished in 2015. Several sustainability categories were covered in this report, including waste, energy, water, transportation, etc. This report can be found on the GIC website under the SAC committee section. Waste stream management was identified as the highest priority and most pressing concern in the areas where most improvements can be advanced. This topic is very timely today for several reasons, though I do not plan to read all the whereas and therefores. I would like to address the key points. First, the Beaufort County landfill in Jasper County is nearing the end of its lifespan. Second, third, the landfill operation agreement with Waste Management is nearing the end of the term for renegotiation in 2025. This presents an opportunity to emphasize recycling, promote landfill diversion. Landfill agreements take years to negotiate and begin now to maximize our leverage. A new agreement and sustainability policies will benefit both Beaufort County and the town of Hilton Head. So GIC recommends that a new agreement be negotiated to include the following. Regular landfill to be open during peak times. It's now closed on weekends, which affects the delivery of a lot of the people picking up trash from guests. Invest in recycling processing and build a transfer station. This could be developed as a sustainability campus, and the Beaufort County should take the lead and greater control of the landfill and recycling options. And finally, Beaufort County pays the landfill disposal fees, but not recycling. This arrangement actually discourages rather than encourages recycling. Haulers are incentivized to dump the recycling as waste. Whereas now therefore, the Greater Island Council of Hilton Head Island and Bluffton strongly encourages the Hilton Head Town Council and Beaufort County to take a leadership position and work together to begin negotiations with the current landfill operator and any other potential landfill of recycling facility operators, and be proactive in the development of a new long-term agreement that will secure the landfill and recycling needs of Hilton Head Island and Beaufort County. That's all, and I want to thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Warco. Right, first we will see if we have any members of the public, any citizens who want to make a presentation. They're limited to 3 minutes. Teresa, do we have someone who wants to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have our prior chairman, Mr. Peter Christian, on the line. I believe, Peter, are you on the line?
He's unmuted.
Mr. Christian, are you there?
I see an iPhone on the screen here that is now unmuted. Peter, are you there? We'll give him a minute here to get on board.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you would like to maybe forward with the commission comments, and I could give Mr. Christian a call to see if he's available.
Okay. I hate to cut off a former chairman of the commission. So Peter, we hope to hear from you before we vote. Let's start with any questions from members of the commission for Mr. Warco regarding this presentation and the resolution. Would you, a discussion order, Teresa, would you run through the members of the commission, ask them if they have comments or questions?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. First up, Mr. Siebold.
Yes, I see that the current contract is for a 25-year timeframe. I'm wondering, would the goal be to negotiate a contract for a similar time period in the future?
They're going to be pushing for that 20-year, 25-year. That's more up to Beaufort County than us. We just really want to kind of push to have where we have some options and can lengthen the life of the landfill.
Thank you.
All right, next, Mr. Alfred.
Yes, are there any organizations that are not in favor of moving forward with this and are potentially in opposition?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. O'Neill?
I have no real questions. I've had the opportunity to review this as it was processed through the GIC, and I have no questions and am supportive.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Campbell? You're unmute, Mr. John. Yeah.
Yep. Have we started looking for a new location for a landfill yet?
No, we haven't. There's been talk with some other providers that they could possibly do some transfer stations, some large waste haulers. And also they're trying to get some expansion, open up another cell and then possibly raise the height of the landfill. So they're working to do some of that stuff.
And do you know how long do we have left? What's the lifespan of the one our current landfill is?
About 7 years is what they're estimating. They kind of keep that fudgy because, I mean, one, if we have hurricanes and so forth, of course, that changes it. But there's been instances in other places, Horry County and stuff, where when they get an aggressive recycling program, they can double the life of the landfill. So.
And how long does it take to negotiate the contract here?
I'm not sure. I'd say at least a year. And that's done with Beaufort County. So.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Hens, we get you while you're here.
Yes, Mr. Wardco, I want to thank you. Appreciate your attention to this, yours and GIC. And I think the conclusion that you've reached in your resolution is obvious, and I can't imagine that we would not do anything other than support that wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Mr. Collett?
No comments.
No comments. Okay. I have a question, Tony. In looking for a location for the transfer station, would that be on island or off island in Beaufort County?
Currently, they're looking off island, but a transfer station, in reality, we kind of have a mini transfer station.
Right.
That's up on Dillon Road.
The convenience center, yes.
Yeah, I mean, a transfer station can be very neat and very organized and very pretty and functional. The thing they're talking about is a sustainability campus where you actually do the sorting, but you also do some compacting and baling of the aluminum. You can also do some granulating and shredding of the plastic, some further processing of it, some baling of the cardboard, and then it's hauled away. Collection of pallets. Everybody has pallets are thrown in the landfill. So it could be a convenience station, and then, if they had trash, that would probably be off island where they would transfer that. There's one company that says, they're kind of like, hey, we'll build our own transfer station and haul it to their landfill down in Macon. But, so there's a lot of those moving pieces of, that the county's negotiating.
Does either the town or the county have any regulatory authority to have trash companies recycle? I mean, they're supposed to be recycling now, but it's really not taking place. I separate my trash into recycling bin and a regular trash bin, and they all go in the same back end of the truck. You know what I mean? And so I'm wondering what regulatory authorities might the town or the county have to compel or encourage waste transfer people to separate?
We've talked a lot to the county about that. We haven't really got a good conclusion on it. You can kind of recommend, or you can give a recommendation. That's one thing that the town could do is, some suggestions, what people do in other places. The town, I know, doesn't want to get involved in the recycling, but they could say, hey, when you turn in your business license, you need to have a plan for recycling. At least starting with a plan that they have a recommendation. But the key thing is these guys have somewhere to haul it. Our waste, our recycling that goes to landfill, that is recycled. I'm sorry, that goes to the convenience center, that is recycled, but it's hauled off and ends up being sorted in Winston-Salem. So you're hauling empty aluminum cans and plastic bottles, and we're being charged as taxpayers, we're being charged to haul this stuff around. So one thing, this sustainable campus, and so sustainability of campus, it would process it, do it close, compact it, reduce the trucking and that kind of stuff.
All right, thank you, sir. Teresa, is Mr. Christian on the line at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that he is. We're not able to get a hold of him just yet. I do believe, do we have Mr. D'Arienzo to give comments?
Yes, yeah, I have a few questions. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Wartko. I'm just looking for a little more background, a little more clarity regarding the current county recycling center. So that's off Dillon Road, and you mentioned that's got about 7 more years.
The landfill out at Hickory Hill has about 7 more years.
All right, so how does this proposal interface with the current recycling center off Dillon Road?
It doesn't, it's having them look at, well, one way is if they restructure, we want them to look how the fees currently, when you take your, I'm a commercial driver, commercial trash hauler. I go to the landfill. I say it's residential. I dump it, it's free. County pays for the landfill. If I want to recycle, I gotta drive down the street and they charge me about $150 a ton for the recycling. I know that is what happens. So I know that kind of sounds goofy, but and so really we want them to look at that and organize, really look at the overall thing and push the recycling. So that's where you'd be able to, now if you're able to do that, or you level out the pricing, that would encourage the waste haulers to focus more on recycling.
Yeah, because like Mr. Scanlon mentioned, I've observed the same things, and that's why I take my recyclables out to the county recycling center off Dillon Road to make sure it is properly handled.
Yeah.
And every time I go there, it's a packed capacity crowd. So it's popular on the island, and you're talking about a secondary location to take care of these types of things.
Yes, well, it'd be more for commercial. This is just
Okay.
one suggestion we have, more for commercial. So you have people picking it up, but now I'd be encouraged if I had transfer station, say over in Bluffton, I could go over there, drop my stuff off and come back and get to work rather than haul all the way up to the Hickory Hill landfill. So it'd be more efficient for my trucks and so forth.
All right. Let's go back, Teresa, back through the commissioners to see if there are any further questions before we vote on this issue.
Yes, sir. Mr. Siebel,
No further questions.
Mr. Alfred,
No questions.
Mr. O'Neill.
More a comment here. The proposal contains the idea of a sustainability center. Much of the cost of this is happening in the hauling, the long distance hauling that we're seeing now. And so if you have a sustainability center and you're crunching up the glass and you're crunching up the aluminum and doing all of that, then you got much less hauling expense and a good environmental program. So that's kind of the context that I think some of this was developed around.
Good.
Correct.
Mr. Campbell,
No questions.
Mr. Hens,
Yes, while we're talking about waste, one of my biggest pet peeves is the waste of having multiple trash haulers running up and down our neighborhood streets instead of just having a single hauler 1 day a week. It seems to me just an incredible waste of all types of resources and wear and tear on our streets. And I'm hoping that that might become a part of the dialogue as well somewhere along the line.
Thank you.
Mr. D'Arienzo,
No further questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Tony, I have one last question. I noticed in the whereases here that there's a new contract should meet the following requirements, be open during peak hours or peak time. Is that a problem right now?
Well, that's what a lot of people feel kind of torpedoed the last time we tried single hauler with Republic Waste. The landfill closed on Saturday afternoon. And of course, your waste companies are trying to get to these vacation rentals and so forth and the multifamily uses. So they're trying to get, all the hauling and the pickups on Saturday, and they can't get to the landfill in time to before it closes. So that's been kind of something that's been mentioned. It wasn't convenient for you had Waste Management running the landfill and you had Republic running the recycling and waste program. And that didn't work as efficiently as it possibly could. So to make that landfill convenient for the times it's open.
I think that's an excellent point with all the rentals we have during the tourist season, changing over mostly on Saturday. All right, if there are no additional comments from the commissioners, I think we should put this to a roll call vote. Teresa, would you call the roll? First of all, I need a motion though to pass the resolution up to town council. So I need a motion to do so and then a second. Is there?
So moved. Jim Collett.
Jim Collett moves, and is there a second?
I'll support that.
Mr. Seabold seconds the motion. Okay, and let's have a roll call vote on this, Teresa, if you would.
Yes, sir. Mr. Siebold,
Yes.
Mr. Alfred,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Hens,
Yes.
Mr. Collett,
Yes.
Mr. Darienzo.
I'd like to say yes, conditional on the proposed location.
Well, this is to forward it for negotiation. That makes a difference.
I think the location is very important. Are there various locations or sites that you're looking at?
What the county has told us, they have 2 places they're looking at and they're off island.
They're all when?
Off
2
island.
places they're looking at and
Off
they're
island.
off island.
Okay. That being the case, I vote yes.
Yes.
Mr.
And
Scanlon.
I vote yes as well to forward this resolution to town council. We will, now that it's been approved by a vote of 8-0, we will forward a letter to town council explaining our position on this particular resolution, and we'll go from there. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Let's see here what's next on our agenda.
Thank you. And just one comment, Peter was at the doctor getting some pins out of his hand. So he said he'd listen in. So that's where he is. So thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that, Tony.
Okay.
All right, the next is commission business, committee assignments. I will cover both this committee business as well as the chairman's report by indicating that I had originally been listed as the vice chairman of the Comprehensive Planning Commission, and I found out that I, as chairman, can only be an ex officio member of various committees. And so I will become an ex officio on this particular committee, which is near and dear to my heart, the Comprehensive Plan Committee. And Mr. O'Neill has volunteered to serve as our vice chairman on this committee for the year. And I've also, based on him volunteering for this, I'm recommending him Mr. Jim Collett to town council to be put on the Gullah Geechee task force. And so that concludes my comments as chairman. Were any committee meetings held here since our previous meeting? Let's go through the list here. Did CIP have any actions?
Not yet, not yet, Mr. Chairman.
And comprehensive plan, John, nothing's come up there yet. Okay. The Gullah Geechee task force, John, anything new on that you need to tell us?
Nothing really. We had a meeting yesterday, but I had to cut it a little bit short on my side.
Okay. Anything that would come to council excuse me, the commission, let me know. LML committee, Alan is absent at this meeting, but I understand, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was no LMO meeting since our last meeting.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And rules of procedure, Mr. Alfred, we haven't had anything come before that committee yet, have we?
No,
we have not.
we have not.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Teresa Haley. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Peter Christian just joined the meeting. I don't know if it would be appropriate to allow him time to speak.
Yes, I think, yes, absolutely. Former chairman do get that privilege as far as I'm concerned.
Yes,
I rule
sir.
in favor of that.
Mr. Christian, are you on the line? Can you
Unmute.
give us your comments?
I see a phone on the line, but it's muted.
Yes, I've just sent a request to
Okay.
the number to unmute.
It's unmuted.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Thank you for your indulgence. I very much appreciate it. And I'm sorry, I had a doctor's appointment earlier this morning. That was exactly at the time that you were receiving public comment, and I couldn't change that appointment. So I very much appreciate the indulgence. I know that Tony Warco has already made a presentation to the commissioners. It is the same presentation or very similar to the one that was made by Mark Baker in June of this year when I was still sitting with you on the dais. And I just wanted to reinforce, because I realized that in June it was a unanimous recommendation of the commission to forward that to the appropriate town council committee. And I would like to speak again on behalf of that resolution that Mr. Warco and Mr. Baker put forward. And due to a announcement glitch, I understand, needed to be brought back to the commission with all the appropriate notifications. And I would urge the commission to forward that resolution on to the appropriate town council committee.
Thank you.
That ends my comments unless there are any questions. And I, again, very much thank you for your indulgence.
You spoke crystal clear despite the Novocaine. We appreciate you being with us. The commission has just voted 8-0 to forward this to town council as approved.
That is excellent. That is excellent news, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again. And thank you to all the commissioners.
Thank you for speaking up. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you again.
All right. And we will be forwarding, as I said, a letter. Now we have under staff reports, we have an update. Teresa, are we ready for staff reports at this point?
Yes, sir. We have Jamie Lopko on the line.
Right. Jamie will give us a presentation, an update basically on workforce housing plan by the town. And we'll have questions after Jamie makes a presentation. Jamie, you have the floor.
Good morning, planning commissioners. Just wanted to share some information with you. Town council identified workforce housing as a priority in 2018. They then hired a consultant to draft what we have as a workforce housing strategic plan. And that was adopted in late 2019. And this plan comes with 8 recommendations. And I'm going to briefly go through those recommendations and let you know where we stand with those. The first is a housing trust fund. And that's something that we're pursuing regionally. The county has hired a consultant to draft a report that will give us an idea of how a regional housing trust fund would function and the role of the different entities with that. And that report has been completed and is due to be presented by Beaufort County to the town council at their October 19th meeting. Next is a commercial reuse policy. And we have adopted in November of 2020 a commercial conversion policy or commercial conversion incentive that allows the conversion of non-residential square footage into units with the inclusion of workforce housing. The next is making town-owned land available, and I'll cover that later specifically since you asked for that. A density bonus program that again has been adopted in February of 2021 by town council. And again, is another incentive. At this point, it's only available in our RM4 district on parcels of 3 acres or greater. But again, we're monitoring both of those programs to see if they're going to be successful and if we need to expand those incentives. The next recommendation was an employer assisted housing. And that's not something that's being pursued at a town level, but there are several employers on the island that are pursuing providing housing for their employees. Next is a tax and impact fee rebate. Taxes, unfortunately, are controlled at the county and state level where we can lobby to have changes, but we can't control those changes. For the impact fees, right now, Beaufort County has a discounted impact fee program for single family owner occupied units. That they can apply for based on their household income. There is a tier of up to 100% of the impact fee could be covered. And it's something that the town has talked about and may consider in the future doing something similar. The next recommendation is a home link or home sharing program. And again, this is something that is not being pursued at a town level. And the last recommendation was make rental projects more competitive for the low income housing tax credit. There are criteria that you get points for in this, and a lot of those are not favorably looked at on the island because of our geography. So the town did provide comments regarding those criteria, and I believe they have been adjusted to make it easier to qualify to get low-income housing tax credit projects on the island. So with the incentives that we have in place, town staff has worked to put a promotion package together to educate and recruit developers of workforce housing on the island. These materials have been prepared, and they should go out this week to commercial realtors on the island, as well as anyone who has been in contact with the town requesting information about workforce housing. So the Planning Commission requested that staff bring information regarding the use of town-owned land for workforce housing to this meeting. The town currently owns 1,295 acres of land on the island. So when the town acquires land, it can be done in various methods, and some come with restrictions on how the property can be used. Some of the properties are donated for a specific use, while others are purchased jointly with the county for preservation or park purposes. But many of the properties are purchased with bond referendum funds or other fees that restrict how the land can be used. So as part of the workforce housing recommendations, the town staff is developing a town-owned property dashboard that will assist us in determining which properties could be developed. And at this time, the town has pledged up to $1 million of the American Rescue Plan funds for the use at the Patterson Tract, which is located off of Marshland Road, to advance the workforce housing, affordable housing. And the town manager and staff will work with town council to establish a partnership agreement in this regard in the new year. The chairman also specifically asked me to address the Mid-Island tract and the possibility of using it for workforce housing, and that's the old golf course property. The town currently has a design team working on the analysis of the property and the initiative area. We anticipate getting the results of that in the next month or so. We're working on a program developed in conjunction with the Parks and Rec Commission, as well as input from town council and various stakeholders. Housing has been mentioned in discussion regarding the broader initiative area. However, the Mid-Island tract is located in a floodplain and near the airport, both of which make it not ideal for housing. The redevelopment initiative area is going to consider the needs and appropriate location for housing, including single-family and multifamily opportunities. And the Planning Commission will have a voice in this strategy and recommendation to town council. And just to close, town staff is also going to prepare a full training on our workforce housing recommendations initiatives to bring back to the Planning Commission at a later date to make sure we can fully go through all of the pieces that we're working on and what's been adopted at this point.
Thank you, Jamie. Let's ask the commissioners if they have any questions or comments on this workforce housing plan. We'll start with Mr. Collett. Any comments, questions for Jamie?
No, I think this is a great thing to do. I mean, the faster we can do it, the better, because we're losing workers. But the fact that we're doing it, I think is great.
Mr. Hens?
Yeah, Ms. Lopko, I really appreciate that update. I was wondering what we were doing regarding workforce housing, and this sounds like a good list for starters. And I'm really anxious to have our general public learn about the efforts that we're making at the town on workforce, since it's such an important, such a critical element for our community. So the sooner we can get this word out, the better.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell?
Yeah. Is there any way I could have a copy of that packet when you're finished with it to give to developers?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to share it with the entire Planning Commission.
Okay. And is there any developers already lined up that the towns are in talk with?
I've had discussions with several developers, but we've had no actual applications submitted at this point, but there are discussions occurring.
Okay. All right.
Mr. O'Neill?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Alfred?
Yes. After our last meeting in which we rejected an application on the Roller property on Marshland Road, a thought popped into my head that this is a particularly good site to get started on with workforce housing. First of all, it's for sale. Second of all, in terms of public reaction, workforce housing is likely to be regarded as a better use than trailers. And third, on the day after our meeting, a supporter of the conclusion we reached published a note on social media and congratulating us, but most of all, making clear that they were in favor of having workforce housing on that site. That particular comment received over 100 responses on social media, many of which included recognition that that was a good site for workforce housing. The thought as it rolled around in my mind said, okay, the next thing, if there was any interest in doing that, probably requires that the town purchase the Roller property land. I understand there may be question as to sources of funds, and probably would require that it be resold to a developer at a lower price. So my question, Jamie, at this point is, where should that suggestion be presented, and when is an appropriate time to do so?
I am happy to pass that on to the town manager and see if it's something that the town would be willing to consider.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right, Mr. Diarienza.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lepko. I do have a few questions. So regarding the Mid-Island track, so if workforce housing is proposed within that track, are we talking about carving back land from the current Mid-Island Park, or is this above and beyond the park?
The park right now, the land that we purchased is 102 acres, and right now there's no, it's not currently, don't have a plan for how many acres of park or how many acres of any development at this point. It's still in the design phases, so we don't know that at this point.
So 102 acres total. If we look at workforce housing there of 20 acres, let's say, we're left with 82 acres for the park?
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned there were 8 key points. And was transportation or transit included as one of those points?
Not specifically in one of the recommendations for housing, but I know that it has been brought up by town council as one of the things we need to consider as part of the initiatives to bring our workforce here if we can't provide housing on the island.
So will that be wrapped into the overall strategic plan at some point?
The strategic plan has been adopted as it is, but it is something that was put into policy that town council wants the town staff to consider to look at.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Jamie, I'll call on myself at this point. With regard to the thing you mentioned on the trust fund, how would the monies be raised and where would they come from, that sort of thing? Could you fill me in a little bit on that?
Right now, the proposal is that each municipality that is involved, based on their population, would have a certain amount assigned to them, and that will be contained within the report that is presented to council on the 19th.
Where does the money come from?
That would be up to the municipality to determine where the funds would come from.
You mentioned also various employer groups on the island. I know the Surge Group, I believe, is our largest employer on the island. And I know, for example, the Sea Pines Resort is building some workforce housing for their people. And I'm wondering if we could do a public-private get together and work on this trust fund, whereas the various restaurateurs and other employers could contribute to the trust fund and be able to use some of those funds for housing their own employees, especially during the heavy season. Any restrictions on that sort of a public, private partnership on this sort of thing?
No, there would be no restrictions on that, but the Regional Housing Trust Fund would be a separate entity of each one of the municipalities. So they would have their own board and their own staff to direct the use of that funds, but then the municipalities would create the criteria that would be used to give them direction on how to use it, but that would be an option.
All right. I like the idea of the reverse use or the reuse policy for commercial conversion. I think that's something we have to look at closely based on where it's located and the neighbors and all that sort of thing. But I do like to encourage that sort of thing as well. With regard to the town-owned properties, in a future meeting, if it's possible, I think the commission would like to see a map of where the town properties are and maybe color coded so that we know which ones are open for this type of discussion and which ones are restricted to parks or other uses. A map of that kind would be very helpful, I think, to the commission in the future to have us take a good close look at this so we can meet with the town manager and the town council members over some of our thoughts with regard to what happens with some of these properties in the future. Let's see, I don't think I have any other comments at this time, but I do want to emphasize the fact that this commission would like to have a real regular communication with town council and the town manager on this issue. It's of importance to all of us, and it's important to our constituents out there on the island. They're worried about it. That's the number one issue they always raise when they say, what are you guys doing on this workforce housing issue? And right now we have nothing to point to, but I think we need to really open up the lines of communication so we're all rowing in the same direction.
And Mike, I suggest we do this in person so we can see the maps,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
we would, or make the maps available to each and every one of us. We're not meeting in person yet.
Yeah.
Let's go back through the commissioners and see if there are any other things. Rick, do you have anything you want to ask or add?
No further questions.
Okay, Bruce?
Yeah, I recall seeing a color-coded map of town-owned properties several years ago, and it was impressive. They're spread out all over the place. But I think that was before the town acquired the 102-acre former Planters Row golf course at Mid-Island. Jamie, can you tell us, is that the largest single tract of land that's owned by the town right now? Is that 102 acres?
It's pretty close. I mean, there are others that are similar in size,
okay.
and there is a town-owned property map on the town's website that's basically color-coded for like our fire stations and our parks, but there are a lot of those that are to be determined or unknown uses on there. So that's something we will look at when we do the town-owned dashboard, and it will include a map.
I look forward to seeing that as well. Thank you.
Stephen, any questions? Mr. Alfred?
Oh,
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
No, except thanks, Jamie, for this presentation. It helps me improve my understanding of everything here.
Mr. Campbell?
But definitely thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Hens?
Nothing else. I think we've got it covered. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Collett?
I think it's a great step forward. I think we're doing the right direction.
Okay. Well, Jamie, I want to thank you for responding to our earlier request for this kind of information. And the items that the town council and the town manager are working on, it's very encouraging to hear this report you provided us with today, to know that there's so many different things that are being looked at. We just want to make sure that we know on a regular basis how these things are progressing. And I know I'll be talking with Mr. Orlando and others to keep us posted on this before our future meetings. If there is no other business before the commission, I would say that we are adjourned for the day. Thank you kindly for your participation.
I have one comment,
Oh,
if I could.
okay, go ahead.
Is it too late?
No.
Did you all read the island packet this morning about all the road proposals?
The bridge and yeah.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, Tom Davis controls all the money that'll be spent on that. So when people kind of shoot off, this is what we're going to do, that what we're going to do, Tom is the guy who's really going to say, control it. So,
Well, I'll add to another minute or two to the meeting by saying I'm very concerned about a traffic light at the end of the bridge at
Yeah.
Windmill Harbor. Even though Windmill Harbor is not part of the town of Hilton Head Island, that concerns me a lot. People coming over that bridge and all of a sudden, bam, there's a traffic jam or a light that's red. It concerns me greatly. And I don't know what we can do about it at this point if it's out of our hands, but should definitely make our feelings known with regard to what the state and the county are up to.
well, that's why I said, because people in that article made it sound like they're making the call and nothing's going to happen until Tom Davis approves it. So,
Well, if you have a particular relationship with Mr. Davis, maybe he ought to come and give us a briefing as to what is going on. But that would be helpful in the future.
Yeah.
If there are no other comments, raise your hand if you have a comment. If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen, for your participation today.
Thank you.